active and go out foraging. This is why we didn't light up the sighting, of course. It may have compromised the zebra's eyes and at the same time attracted those hyenas and lions to the activity.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, as you can see, it is a beautiful start to our day. Not only do we have a sun that is slowly peeking through the clouds, providing with beautiful color, but we've got a herd of elephants that's slowly meandering across the open clearing of quarantine. It looks like it's going to be a spectacular day. The clouds are starting to give way after a bit of rain yesterday afternoon. It feels like there's lots of promise in the air because of it, and the perfect way to start is with these guys. So hopefully you're comfortable, hopefully you've grabbed yourself a tea, a coffee, or an afternoon tipple, if that's what you feel like, and you're ready for your very own live African safari. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this sunrise safari. As you can see, it's a beautiful, beautiful way that we've started our morning with these ellies kind of slowly walking their way into the sunrise. It's nice to see the sun because yesterday afternoon, a lot of you may have wondered where the Djuma feeds went, and it's because we got caught in an absolute cloudburst of note, which was not ideal, and I'll get into what happened just now. My name is Tristan. On camera, I have got Impo this morning, and we are looking forward to taking you all out on safari. Remember that we are coming to you live from Africa, which means that we would like to hear from all of you, and you may ask any questions that are on your mind or any comments, and you can do so by using the hashtag Wild Earth for Twitter, at FC for the YouTube chat stream, on the website as well as any of the comments boxes on the various other streams. And for kids, remember, we want to hear from you guys too. kidsequestions@wildearth.tv for you guys to ask anything that you want to ask about elephants or the wild world of Africa as well. Now, I was saying that we had a bit of a downpour yesterday. It came out of absolutely nowhere. We were sitting there, sun was shining, and next thing, a deluge came down. Unfortunately, because of that deluge, it meant that our cars got really badly wet, which has led to Rusty not working. So you'll see that I'm on Wendy this morning, and poor Wendy had to have some open heart surgery this morning by one of our tech guys to get Wendy up and running this morning as well. So it's just going to be me on Juma this morning. This afternoon, hopefully, Trish will be sorted and the dam cam will be back up, which means that I'll be probably going to dam cam. But otherwise, we will have hopefully Pinda out at some point. Ngala will also be with us, and Pridelands. And unfortunately for now, it's raining in Tswalu, so Tswalu won't be with us at this stage just yet. Hopefully it stops raining, and they too will come out a little bit later. But the plan for the morning for us is that we are going to be, well, sitting with these ellies for now, because it's just a beautiful scene. Like I say, with the kind of oranges of that sunrise behind them. And generally, they're actually being quite playful, particularly the youngsters, as you can see by them lying on the road and kind of pushing each other around. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to start the day. But after this, we're going to head back to where I was yesterday, where we had that leopard with its carcass, and see if we can get any sign. Just as it started raining, we could kind of smell the carcass heavily and see something moving in the bush, but we just weren't able to actually get a kind of clear view. Right. Now, we're going to probably sit with these eddies for a little bit longer. In the meantime, though, let's send you across, I think it's to Yapi, to say good morning.
Good morning to all our viewers, and a warm welcome to Anbion and Ngala, where this morning we're looking at the sun. What a beautiful sunrise it is indeed. Over a beautiful clearing, an open space, not too far from a dry riverbed. And we've just been sitting here listening out to hear if we might hear any sounds that might help us with looking for some animals this morning. I'm Yapi, and behind the camera we've got Owen, and we've set out this morning. We're going to drive a little section along the bank of the riverbed, see if we can pick up on any fresh tracks from during the night. And then I think we'll head up towards a clearing where we had a lioness with 3 cubs and a dead wildebeest yesterday. And we're going to go look if there's anything left, or if there might be any scavengers nearby. It looks like it might be a good morning to try and look for hyenas. There's a lot of activity on the road, and they often help us to indicate where the exciting stuff happened during the evening. And then we might have a look, see if we can find some jackals. I know that clearing that we're heading to often has 2 jackals in it. Kenneth, I also like the silhouette of the trees. It's a beautiful leadwood in front, closest to us. The one behind that, I think, is a dead knobthorn, or one that's been damaged by elephants. And then the one at the back looks like a large marula. The one's right in front of the sun is also marulas. This particular section is quite a diverse section. It's characterized by clearings like this, There's some good food available here for animals like zebra and wildebeest. And then, of course, the elephants. Been noticing a lot of elephant activity nearby marula trees lately. Even notice a couple of marula trees being debarked, which is something that this time of the year you don't see that often. There's enough marula, enough grass around for them to feed off. Well, while we sit here and listen for a little while longer, we're going to send you over to Steve and see what his plans are for the day.
Good morning everybody. Welcome to Eco Training Pridelands in the Greater Blue Lake, Greater Kruger National Park area, where there's a gorgeous sunrise. It looks like everybody's doing a sunrise this morning. After a little bit of cloud in the distance, always leads to beautiful, beautiful sunrises. Hello everybody, my name is Steve Falconbridge, joined by Johan on camera, and well, with a beautiful morning, shall we go back to that? It is a beautiful day. There was definitely rain predicted, but not found. No rain arrived last night. It was spitting a little bit last night when we went to bed. We anticipated it may be raining this morning, but as you can see, there is no rain. A gorgeous day. It is 20 degrees apparently here in Pridelands today, which is pretty cold in comparison. Looking to get to 68 degrees Fahrenheit with a very small percentage of precipitation. So our plans this morning are to stay in signal, to try and bring you some wonderful segments from the African wilds on this Tuesday. Stuck in bed they are, aren't they? They are beautiful. And there you can see what the mountain is doing to the water vapor. That is exactly what mountains do. The water vapor hits the mountain and it pushes back to form this dew point layer. So it is possible that there is still some weather on the horizon, but it's always wonderful to watch how it unfolds. Gorgeous morning. So we're going to head up towards sort of the northwestern sections, have a look around Leopard Dam, work around the Dollarite intrusion, maybe even get to talk a little bit about it today. I did mention it last night. It's a beautiful, beautiful sort of addition to this property. I'll talk about potentially the age and where it comes from and what exactly is an intrusion. And then I might break down a few wildflowers this morning. We've got some electrical power lines running through the reserve from Hoedspruit to Palabora. Break down a couple wildflowers this morning into all of their wonderful parts. There's a drainage line, and actually running through the middle of that, not easily seen from this point, is one of the Dollarite sections. Dollarite dikes run in long straight lines like cracks or fissures in the earth crust, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. Okay, so we might just enjoy this beautiful scene a moment longer.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. Wild Earth Explorers. It's in your nature.
converging game path will invariably lead you to a water source, but treat all water as suspect. One of my favorite ways of purifying water is to filter out the particulates. And by just filtering it through your sock, you can clear out most of those. You can put water into a snail shell and you can boil it over a fire or using a chemical like chlorine or colloidal silver.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
What makes Anby Private Game Reserve so special is our massive array of habitats. And with that comes, of course, a beautiful diversity of landscapes, but also an incredible biodiversity in terms of plants, bird life and animal life, as well as, of course, our conservation success stories with cheetah, with rhinos, now with pangolins too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
As you can see, we're still sitting with our Ellies, and it's one of our firm favorites. I didn't mention it earlier because I quite frankly forgot. I'm sorry. But it's Short Trunk that is here. This is an elephant a lot of you will know, and some of you will have no idea what I'm talking about. It's an elephant that we see regularly on Djuma. She has the tip of her trunk missing, so her trunk is not normal. Unfortunately, it looks like it potentially was maybe caught in a snare at some point in the Kruger area, and the little tip has been kind of severed off. It's quite common to see with elephants. Sometimes it's not a snare damage, sometimes it's from something like a crocodile. They can sometimes bite them on the trunks, or even hyenas, and it causes rotting to take place or infection forms, and the sort of tip of it falls off. But in this case, I think just the way it kind of looks is that it might have been a snare at some point early in her life. But it doesn't affect her at all. She's a healthy individual. It's not like she can't feed. She's perfectly able to feed. She can still drink water. She really does function incredibly well, despite not having those two little fingers at the end of her trunk. I would imagine that marula season is a bit of a frustration for her, because picking up those marulas requires a bit of dexterity from elephants. They need those little fingers in order to be able to kind of pick the fruit up and pop it into the mouth. But she'll probably come up with a way. Elephants are smart creatures, and they figure it out. They find ways and means to pick things up and to move things and do whatever they need to do. And she's quite lucky. I once had a really nice close look at the way that it's healed, and it's actually healed with kind of a little tiny lip on the bottom side of the trunk, and so that almost creates like a little shelf, and she's still able to control that muscle to kind of clamp down on things. So you'll see every now and then she can even pick up sticks, and so I'm sure she's with that able to maybe just pick them up and kind of pop them into her mouth. It's always amazes me how animals are able to adapt to injury, particularly something as vital as that. It's essentially, if you want to kind of compare it to humans, it's like getting rid of your hand, or in fact both hands in her case, which is, for humans, is, you know, it would be a little bit of a struggle. We nowadays have invented things like prosthetics, but in times gone by, imagine trying to function with nothing in terms of hands. All right, they're disappearing across quarantine. They're heading all the way to the other side, so we're going to carry on ourselves and go and see what we can find. Damien, these ellies were here last night. I saw her on my way home yesterday evening, so they spent the whole day or whole night in this area, so they would have had a bit of a sleep, I would imagine, especially the youngsters. Coqui Franklins. Nice. Don't see these guys all that often. In the road in front of us is a little male Coqui Franklin. The female just ran off into the grassy areas. But those youngsters will definitely have slept. What was interesting is when a few years ago we did a lot of nighttime work here where we used a thermal drone. And it was incredible to see actually how much the ellies sleep at night. I always was under the impression that elephant, particularly young ones, will lie down and the rest of the herd kind of stays standing and feeds around them and makes sure that they're fine. But that's not what we found with the drone. What we found was at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, the entire herd is sleeping. So everybody is lying down. There was often not a single member standing, and they were all having a rest at that time of the day. And as soon as the first light started to appear, they would all start to stand up one by one, and then they'd start their feeding. So by the time we get going, which is generally just after the first light, before the sun rises often, they're already up and moving. Sorry, that's my head that's in the way of that bird that's scuttling through the long grass. And you can see why they're easily overlooked, these little francolins. I mean, they blend in so well once they're in this longer grassy kind of area. And it's looking for the female. She's somewhere in that area. You can see that the male just by that little cream russet kind of head that he has. The female doesn't have that. She's just more like the wing pattern on that he has across her whole body. All right, he's disappearing. Let's carry on. So yeah, the ellies, they do sleep quite a bit during the night. So I suspect that these elephants on quarantine here had a little nap somewhere, and then they've just been feeding on all the marulas. You can also tell by their tracks, they just have gone back and forth over the open clearing. No, I don't think so. She's still very capable of scenting. I've been with her a lot of times where she puts that trunk up and she just kind of waves it like this, which is typical elephant trying to smell. So no, I don't think so. I think she's still able, because of how long that trunk is, still, it's only really just the little tip that's off, is that she's still very much capable of doing everything that normal elephants do, bar maybe very finicky work, which is, requires those two little points at the end. But in terms of smell, I doubt it. I think she would be perfectly fine. She's still able to use it to drink water, and so the functions of the trunk seem to be working just fine. So I think sense of smell would be okay. Morning, impalas. How are you guys this morning? You're all looking very relaxed. The quarantine herd of impalas is all very relaxed this morning. Alright, I'm going to carry on, and we're going to go and head down to where we had the signs of that leopard and see if we get lucky. In the meantime, let's send you across to Steve, who's got something interesting to look at.
Welcome back, everybody. Good luck, Tristan. I've no doubt leopards will be falling out of the woodwork shortly. Anyway, we've pulled over to stop and just talk about a very lovely little medicinal plant which we find all over the place. And what's very noticeable about it is these little clumpy flowers that we get here. They've got like a bit of orange to them, a bit of yellow. Very, very noticeable. Very noticeable. Sometimes we find little flower mantids hiding in here looking just like these. And their design is obviously to be camouflaged and wait for an insect to come and pollinate the flower. So the pollen and the flower itself is the attractor. The insect has evolved to become camouflaged enough to catch them. Now, a very simple leaf. You can see the leaf over here. It's quite sort of jagged on the edges. Quite jagged, but very useful. This plant itself is actually chewed. The branches as well as the leaves chewed for teething, so if you can encourage a small child to chew on it, and it's also been used for alleviating fever. That's a very, very nice plant. I wonder if any of you out there know what it is. As I discuss it more, send through your answers to #WildEarth if you know what this plant is. This is one I've done before. It's a very common plant we find around. If you get the common name or even the genus name, I'll be more than happy. The flowers and leaves themselves, though, are very sort of mucilaginous. When you break them down with water, they make a very sort of soapy substance. And decoctions of pretty much the whole plant is very useful for cleaning wounds that you might have. So very, very nice sort of body wash for cleaning. And that soapiness that the leaves provide actually assists in that sort of disinfectant property that it has. And if you are feeling the need for cleansing, a decoction of this root taken orally will help you to sort of purge. Purging is something that many cultures do to sort of just remove the body of excess bile or excess things in the gut. And it's something that is, I suppose, not practiced as often by many people. A lot of people think purging is a bad thing, but purging is actually very, very good. Many plant medicines are designed to help you to purge. And as we wait for the name of this to come through, there... Judy, there you are. Of course, Judy got it right. I bet you that's Judy H. I haven't heard from Judy H in so long. I hope you are well. Of course, Judy H got it right, so we'll keep waiting for some more answers to come through. But if you took the plant itself and you took the roots and you burnt them in a metal pan, and you could apply it to the body to deal with snake bite. So it is one of those plants that derives a very nice name from one of the uses. And by burning the roots, having that ash, applying it to a snake bite, apparently can soothe or help you. But I would highly recommend, though, everybody, that if you do get bitten by a snake, that you seek medical attention. You go to the doctor. Don't suddenly decide to pluck this plant, get your fire going, get your metal pan out, pull some roots up, make some ash to then apply to the snake bite. By that stage, I think maybe you'll be experiencing an enormous amount of pain. So if anybody else guessed the name snake bite bush, that is the common name, but the scientific name, as Judy got correct, is Dwarf indica, and it's a wonderful plant that we find around, very versatile and very well pollinated by butterflies, and a very useful plant, as you can tell, in the African kingdom. So many of these plants have been used for generations by locals, and many of those sorts of medicinal properties are passed down. So very nice to be able to transfer these medicinal properties to all of you. And so the snake bite bush, Dwarf indica, is indeed a very magical plant. And it's very commonly found as well. Very commonly found all over quarantine, all over these sort of semi-disturbed areas that we find ourselves in, growing very well. So remember, when you're looking at medicinal plants, try to harvest them sustainably. Try not to over-harvest, and whenever it comes to the roots of a plant, roots are often the most unsustainable part of a plant to harvest. Okay, very good. So that is our first medicinal flower plant of the morning. We're going to continue on, and while we do so, we're going to send you over to Iapi, who's decided to take a turn by the river, and it seems like he's got some action.
And just have a look at that. Those two baboons quite busy for the start of the morning, waiting for the sunlight to come over the ridge, that rocky ridge on the bank. I always find it funny to watch the way that they groom each other, and actually they look like they enjoy it. Now, the one grooming is definitely smaller, and I'm assuming that that's a female, but the other one is also not very large. It doesn't look like it's one of the more senior baboons within this troop, so It might be a related baboon. Maybe an offspring, or maybe it's just helping that one out. Laura Moore, I'm pretty sure it feels amazing to be groomed. With baboons in particular, you sometimes watch them and you can see all the poses that they do, and the eyes often close, especially with this morning sunlight. Slowly getting draped over that ridge. And that, to me, is a clear sign of enjoyment. What I do find interesting, it's like the baboon being groomed knows perfectly well how to tilt its head for that specific area to be cleaned. And have a look at how the one doing the grooming is combing through the hair. It's literally looking in every single fold between the head or the fur to see if there's any parasites there. And of course, a quick morning meal. Mandy, that's a good question. Is there an alpha male? Yes, there is an alpha male. Usually the biggest and the strongest, and often the most aggressive out of the baboons. But then there's also a few males in the group that's less senior in rank. They do, however, all have their own little entourage that follows them. And with that comes a few females. Some of the older females have a little bit of a higher rank, but I wouldn't say that it's quite a dominant female or an alpha female. I can hear a bit of commotion of the rest of the troop that's nearby. Ooh, there's a baby that's just showed up. I think the baby came from down below, closer to the river to drink. In fact, it looks like it's two females, so they might very likely be related baboons. The baby was probably playing in the sunny patch behind these two. And there's also some other animals that's just made their way down to the riverbed, which is pretty amazing to see. It's two big male kudus. And you'll notice that they're moving in the shadier parts of the bank, under those big jackalberries at the back. They seem quite relaxed. It's not often that we get to see the kudus out in the open like this, but they do early morning, especially near the riverbed. And now that there's so much food around, you can see the one in front's got much larger horns than the one at the back. And he's definitely the older one. And while there's still quite a bit of shade on the banks, and that steep bank casting a beautiful set of shade. These kudus are using that to remove in these scooter parts. Hayley, do kudus feed on any type of fruit? I don't think they'll feed on any type of fruit, but I do know that in this particular area there is quite a few fruits that they will feed on. Even the marullas at the moment. Marullas, the jackalberries. I've seen them feed on small berries from quite a lot of different plants. Magic worry on occasion. Now from where I am, I can't actually see what they are feeding on. I see there's actually a third kudu as well, up over on the left, and he looks like he's got even larger horns. Well, they're quite widespread. Something's just drawn its attention. Safari Kitty, those horns are epic, I agree with you. They're very, very large. Well, they look very large, at least, because of their width apart from each other at the tips. Now you do tend to see males, the larger males, older males, often in groups like this. And this particular section of the river would be the best part for them to be moving this time of the year. It is open enough to spot danger, and there is a lot of shelter and food around here. And even though the males aren't moving with the females at this point, there'll definitely be some sort of a hierarchy within this group. But that one in the middle more than likely be the least senior out of them. And looks like the oxpeckers is giving that one a little bit of trouble, and that might just be because of the wet grass as well. I think when the animal moves through the tall wet grass like that, their skin does become a little bit itchy. They do pick up on ticks and things like that. That's why I've noticed quite a lot of oxpeckers at the moment on the animals that tolerate them. Wow, that's spectacular. Personally, I haven't seen a kudu walk down into the riverbed in a long time, and it would be nice to see if it comes down and have a drink, which is also something that's actually quite, I don't know, I think it's almost like a privilege to see in a way. And the kudu is aware of the baboons, who's still going about their business, grooming each other. And they are quite a bit larger than nyalas, actually. Especially the kudu bulls. The male nyala can be quite heavy, but the kudu's definitely taller. And then the kudu bull is much, much heavier. Wow. That was beautiful. Exactly what I was hoping for. You can see, look at the one at the back stopping and looking back in the direction that they came from. Even though it's such a large antelope, they are quite nervous. And they've got good reason to be. Once they're back in the shade and in the thick vegetation, you can see the ones at the top stopped and started feeding again, so they're slightly more relaxed then. But when they had to cross this clearing, or the riverbed itself, you can see they were quite nervous. They had to make sure there's nothing on the other side, unsuspecting. They still had to look around to see if there's anything coming down. Now, it's another thing you see often, actually, that the kudus do cross the river like that, and it might be because they were in a group, as well as the fact that they know that with these baboons being so relaxed and out in the open around, there is no immediate danger around. And by now that must be the cleanest baboon on Ngala. Now, one of the things about this, the wet weather we've been having and the long grass is obviously an increase in parasites, like parasites that sit on the skin, the ticks mostly. Even myself, I've been noticing quite a few pepper ticks, or the tick larvae, whenever we walk in the tall grass. And I can see the kudus are also scratching themselves constantly. They're using their horns as well as the branches of things that they feed on. But this is actually a relationship that we do see where large antelope, especially antelope that feed off leaves of trees and shrubs, that kudu looks like he's having a bit of a situation there with that raisin bush. But I think we'll sit here for a little while longer and see how this tranquil situation unfolds.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, oopsie-doopsie.
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam-ops might disagree.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want. The wildebeest crows is trying. The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky wildebeest. You have another day to live.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the social weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements, is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
So, we've left the riverbed and we're out heading towards the banks, trying to see if we can find something else. Now, along the riverbed, there's always a good chance of finding something. I was hoping that around here we might see some tracks of that lioness or the other lions for that matter. And then I was hoping for some elephants. Leanne, are lion tracks easy to spot? On occasions. I guess it depends on the substrate, it depends on the soil and the area that you're in. Along this section, there's some really soft sand here, and there's also a lot of mud around at the moment because this road was very, very wet after the rains. And yes, there has been some puddles left and on the edges, so this area it's relatively easy to spot it. In the riverbed it's also relatively easy to spot it, but then once you go onto the hard ground, as the soil changes and you get to more rocky areas, which often happen along the roads near the riverbed, you tend to struggle a little bit more. It's amazing how light such a large animal can tread. And then, of course, it also means that what exactly they were doing, whether they were moving slowly, whether they were laying down, or whether they were moving with intent. Because often when they move with intent, all you see is a small little scrape on the ground or a rock that's slightly moved from its original position. Wembley, tracks are not the only method we have to track lions. We do use sound as well. We listen out for noises. We listen out for animals calling early morning. And we also follow other animals' movements. They might be an indication of where a specific animal's moving. Say, for instance, lions, which is a large predator in this area, and they do tend to hunt their own meals, even though they scavenge a lot as well. The presence of a lot of hyenas in an area might indicate that there were large predators moving through that area. And then sound. Sounds is always a good one, because sounds is, say, if you can hear it, you can judge easily whether the animal's far away or whether it's close up. And that might give you an indication of exactly where it is. There's a, I don't know, there's a great duiker, which is a little, and it's just, it looks like there's two there actually. You can see the one standing still in the back there. You can barely see its backside. Well, I think those duikers were quite surprised to see us. And while we keep looking along the riverbed or the riverbank, we'll send you over to Tristan with a surprise.
Well, we do have a surprise, a good one, in that the carcass has been hoisted, which is amazing. This leopard has gotten it somehow before the hyenas have arrived, because there's hyena tracks everywhere around where this carcass was, and there is actually a hyena that is below the tree at the moment. It's super difficult because of the sun, so if it looks like the camera's all blurry, it's not that. It's just that the sun is coming directly from there, and we can't really move much more than where I am now. It's a bit of a difficult place because the Monowati is flowing, so we can't kind of cross to where it would be a much easier view. I don't see any sign of the leopard itself right now. It's not to say that, obviously we know that the leopard will be here somewhere. We just got to try and figure out where exactly she is. I'm amazed though that she managed to get it up. She must have eaten a fair amount yesterday to make it kind of light enough to get up into that tree. For now, all I can see is just the legs dangling. What gave it away was the massive drag mark over the Mulawati riverbed. She dragged it through the water up the bank. It must have been some feat for her to get it across here. Beautiful as well, because of the area that it's in. It would have been something to see with her kind of on the sand. As I say, which leopard it is, still have absolutely no idea. I did check Gowrie Main, and we found tracks for a female leopard coming in the southern side, but that was quite far to the west. So I don't think that this is Shadulu. I think those tracks that we saw might have been Shadulu's tracks or Tlalamba's tracks. I think this is potentially Sabui, that's maybe here. So it's a big guess, but that's who I think it could be. Whichever cat it is, it's one of the stronger, fitter cats. To take a carcass of that size up a tree, obviously it requires huge amounts of power, even though it's disemboweled and has been fed on a little bit. There really is a lot of power that's involved in that. What I'm going to do is I'm just actually going to just change our angle a little bit. It'll make things a little bit easier for Mpo, and maybe we actually see a bit better. James, indeed, a hoisted kill is a promising sign. Now it's just about being patient and waiting. You'll find that if we just sit here for long enough, she'll make an appearance at some point. It's just going to require us to be super patient. We must have been right next to her yesterday in that thicket, because where it's dragged out of is exactly where we were parked yesterday. So when we were saying we could smell it and we could hear something, it's exactly where it's come from. But unfortunately, there was just no way to actually view it from there. Let's just quickly park on this side over here, and we should have a fairly decent, actually, it's not bad view from here. Quite surprised. I thought maybe it wasn't going to be visible, but we have kind of a window to where the carcass is. I'm just going to try and straighten it out so it's easier for him. It wasn't going to be visible, but we actually the carcass is. I'm just going to try and straighten and pour out so it's easier for him without obviously going off the edge of the Mulawati, because that's not going to be ideal. So you'll see there's a window through the tree where the carcass is, and now it's about just looking and seeing if we can actually spot her. So it's not a fully grown ram, but last year's male, so the ones that were born last year, which is a fair-sized impala. You can see that it's been disemboweled in the typical leopard eating pattern, where they've kind of eaten the innards as well as the sort of rump area. So for those of you a little bit squeamish, I do apologize. I know some of you don't like seeing the carcasses, but leopards have to eat, and so this is the kind of view that we have of their food, unfortunately. Just scanning around to see if I can spot her. She must be close by. I don't think she can be far. There's hyenas lurking. And she could even be in this tree. It's so densely foliated in there. I don't even know. We can maybe try from the other side. We might get lucky and get some sort of sign of her. Sorry, if you hear a bit of a noise, that's just me taking off my jacket. It's getting hot very quickly, so I need to get rid of that. But maybe, I don't know if we'll be able to get in from the other side, whether it'll be dry enough. But it's worth a chance. I think we can get fairly close to where that tree is. It would have been nice if she was just lying out on the sandbank. That would have been the nicest thing, but that's never the way it is with leopards. It's always got to be a little tricky when it comes to these guys. You've got to work hard in order to see them, and it's so lush and vegetated at the moment that if they're down and in the grass, spotting them is near impossible. You've got to kind of wait for them to either lie in a more sort of open clearing or up the tree itself, which definitely doesn't seem like she's up there. The mystery of who it is, I think, what bugs me the most about this is that I just would love to know which leopard it is. We know it's definitely not Tundi, so it must be either Sibuya or Tlalamba. Justine, you're asking where the vultures are. So vultures won't even see this. That kill is so well hidden in that thicket and so well hidden yesterday that the vultures have no idea that it's even here. They won't be able to spot that, and even if they did spot that kill, for them to try and land in there is near impossible. Their wingspan would just mean that they would get caught up completely. It would be uncomfortable for them. They would damage their wings. And so that's part of why leopards putting carcasses in trees is so nice for them, because the birds don't worry them too much. And if they can't see the carcass and they can't get to the carcass, then they're not interested in hanging about. So that's why you're not seeing any vultures. Unfortunately, leopards the vultures they deal with are the hyenas on the ground most of the time when it comes to treeing kills. You'll find hyenas just sort of milling about at the bottom, generally trying to wait for a scrap to drop down, and they do benefit as this leopard starts to feed and legs start to fall. So you start seeing the hyenas getting like little rewards for their patience. They know ultimately that if they just stay here and spend enough time here, little bits will come down, and rather than expending energy running around trying to find food, they can just sit and be patient, and eventually food will come to them. Also, the leopard can make a mistake and drop the whole carcass, and if the hyenas are waiting, then they can steal it pretty quickly and make off with it. Such a pity that she's not out where we can see her. Christian, yes, leopards can hunt in trees. I mean, there's lots of evidence of that, where they either hunt monkeys, squirrels, birds. Sometimes they'll, go after lizards up in trees, and even hunt things like impalas from the trees themselves. Not so much here in the Sabi Sands. I've never seen it here, but I have seen it in sort of South Luangwa in Zambia, even in the Kruger National Park in an area called Shingwetsi. There's been recorded cases of leopards dropping out of trees there. Botswana, in Mashatu, they do it. So they sit up in the tree, and as the impalas or whatever it is comes underneath Nyala to come feed, the leopards just bomb straight out the tree on top of them. It's a pretty incredible thing to see. But I've never seen that tactic used here in the Sabi Sands, which surprises me. I would have thought by now one of our cats would have... Actually, I have seen a video of it once on Londolozi. I lie, sorry. But I've never personally seen them doing it. I've seen lots of leopards thinking about it and sitting up in the trees and watching as antelope slowly meander down towards where they are, but never actually drop from the tree on top of them. Trying to scan this whole area with binos just to see if I can't pick up a little rosette in the bush, but definitely nothing that I can see, just the carcass. And the track is definitely a female leopard, it's most certainly not a male. Alright, I might try and give it a crack from the other side, just see if we can get in that side. We'll see how we go. In the meantime though, let's send you across to Yapi.
Just look at all those ears flicking. You can see some grooming going on there. Some curious looks. It's always interesting to get to all the animals, or all the groups of animals that we find along the roads near the riverbed, like this group of impala. And they must have had a pretty interesting morning. They're not too far from where that troop of baboons were earlier. And I can imagine they've had to listen to quite a lot of commotion this morning. But also, this is the time of the morning they usually start getting very busy, start moving around. And then, of course, all those ears and tails flicking. To me, that's an indication that the flies are bothering them. This is quite a large herd. Just by a quick count, I've counted already over 30, close to 40. I'm sure they've spent their night somewhere nearby in one of these clearings. Now, with all of these impala and also the other animals around, there's always a good chance that something exciting might be picked up, like the leopard or lion nearby. You can see those ears are upright and listening out. It's always listening out. If I heard correctly, your name is Tusk. That'll be the impala lambing season is actually quite far away now. Like it's just recently in this particular area come to an end. In fact, I can see two younger ones in front, and these ones were actually born like last year, maybe December or November. But usually the late ones we'll see at the beginning of January. However, I did come across a very, very small one a few days ago, and it looks like it might have been born within the last few weeks, which is unusual for this part. I mean, it's not completely unheard of, but the impala's lambing season is usually from the end of November, more or less, and then into December at the beginning part. In this particular area, at least. It also varies from region to region, depending on the seasons. Victoria, impalas don't have a very long lifespan, at least not out here. They do, I mean, in captivity, they can live for quite a few years, maybe up to 15 or so. But however, out here, I highly doubt that most of them actually makes it past their 7th or 8th year. Maybe up to 10 in an extreme case in the wild. Just saw a little jolt go through the impala closest to us. And that's amazing. You can see the one ear's facing backwards, the other one in the other direction. In both directions, there is a part of the herd.
Yeah, I'm coming.
And it's amazing how in tune they are to the movements and the activity of the rest of the herd. They focus so much on their hearing, sense of smell. They've also got brilliant eyesight, but as soon as they hear noise, one animal moves, that movement kind of goes as a ripple effect throughout the whole herd, and they're all ready to run. I can see one of the young impalas with like literally tilting its head with an ox picker to give it the hard to reach parts to clean. It goes to show they do actually accept and realize the help or the aid from the ox pickers. Dr. Rocky Balboa, this is a very healthy herd, but it's also because of the time of the year. This area that we are in now, there's very good food here. Good soils, where all the nutrient-rich soils gather in this particular part close to the riverbed. So the clearings here is what attracts these impalas, and at the moment, with the high grass yield after the rains, they're all looking very, very healthy, which is why they look so shiny. They've put on proper weight, and then also because they keep grooming each other and they have the oxpeckers cleaning them, they literally shine. And then also, it's warming up slightly at the moment. And it would be interesting to see. I can see one of them already standing in the shade of a magic worry right next to the road. And they will move to find a shadier spot, or maybe move to feed within the shadier parts in this area. And then if we have a look at the two impalas, these two grooming each other. You can see around the neck, around the base of the neck. I'm going to move slightly forward to see if we might get a better view. What I wanted to say about those areas where those impalas were grooming is I saw the bird, the red-billed oxpecker earlier, also sitting in that particular part behind the ear. Now those are the hard to reach parts, and one of the benefits of having so many animals within a group, or being a social animal in this case, is that they do to an extent help with personal hygiene. They look a little bit jumpy, but then again, generally they are, and also because of the dense vegetation here, and they know the potential dangers in this area, they have to be very, very alert. Renee, are impalas a leopard's main food source? I think there is a lot of regional variation in that matter. And here on Ngala, I know that there are an abundance in impala as well as leopard kills being impala. But at the same time, I've also seen that it differs from one leopard to the next. I know that there's one female leopard in this particular area that often go after impala, and specifically, at least from what I've noticed, a lot of it's been young males. But then we do also have leopards that go after smaller antelopes, steenbok, duiker. There's another female leopard in this particular area that's actually, she specializes in the small antelopes, and she hardly ever takes her kills up a tree to stash it there. I can see there's still some young males in between this group, and some of them, judging from the size of their horns, have probably been born in the previous lambing season, not the last one, but the one the year before. And I know that these young males often stay within their natal herd for up to almost 2 years. And it looks like these impalas have just disappeared into that clearing now. And I think we are going to go look for something else.
They're February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. Wild Earth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that is truly, truly magical.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
My favorite animal is a leopard, purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Pridelands Eco Training, where the bushwalk team from Eco Training was out on a walk and heard alarm calls of francolins and squirrels, and they followed up and they found 2 sub-adult cubs, leopard cubs, so in this area. We've been following up now. I've looked at some tracks, and that tree just over there is the last tree that male track went past to the northern side of the drainage. So we're going to go around again and have a look, see if maybe we can find him coming out. We didn't see any leopard. We haven't heard any more alarm calls, but we were checking a little while ago and we had tracks of 3 coming in from the northern side, but from last night. So it is possible that the Pixie Pan is around, female, with her 2 youngsters, and maybe there's a kill. We don't know. There's been hyena tracks around, so we're going to have a look. But before we go off and do that, we're going to show you another wonderful wildflower this time of year, and I'm going to wait for your answers as well in this individual. And there's a couple of names you can use, a couple of funny names as well, but very, very easy to identify. It's very soft, large leaf. You can see it there. It looks like a particular type of shape. Very soft, very, very pliable. A wonderful plant. We find it all over the place right now. It's a selected plant, and leaves are cooked or can be eaten raw to assist with hiccups. If you ever do struggle with hiccups, the wonderful yellow flower hasn't yet popped out, but it will. They have seeded already, and they are flowering and fruiting once again. Toilet paper is a very good substitute. This plant is a very, very useful toilet paper plant. And root decoctions have been used to treat the symptoms such as pneumonia, coughs, whereas infusions are apparently quite good for your heart. If you ever have a heartache, a nice infusion of that will help you. And powder of this plant, so broken down and crushed, is very well applied to burns, a sort of a skin balm. And the bark as I've tried before, makes a very average quality sort of twine or rope. It's not a very, very good strength, but if needs must. But from toilet paper point of view, or from removing your makeup, the softness of this leaf is really, really delicate and really, really nice, really soft. So it doesn't seem like anyone's quick on the trigger this morning with regards to answers. So while we wait, I'm going to eat a leaf, because I know everybody loves it when I eat these things. But have a look at that shape. You see the shape? It looks like a particular type of ear, doesn't it? And it pops up like that onto the stalk. It's very nice. Okay, we need to eat it now. It does get a little bit furry in the back of the throat. I'm not going to lie. Johan, would you like some? I've got a willing friend on the back. I'll give you a nice small one. Small ones are nice and soft. There we go. Try to chew it properly before swallowing, because it gets a bit caught up in the back of the throat. Delicious. Do you like it? He's thinking about it. Nope. Flock, it's not a weeping wattle. Weeping wattles have got very finely divided leaves. This is a little herbaceous herb that we found on the floor. I'm doing wildflowers today. We're not doing any trees. And this is indeed a very simple leaf. You have a look at it there again. Very simple leaf. The weeping wattle is a finely divided leaf. This is a simple leaf, and the shape of it is actually what gets its name from, the common name. Not a heart, but I have done this many times before. If you have not been introduced to it before, that's okay. We shall learn today. The very nice genus name called Abutilon angulatum angulatum, and also commonly known, everybody, as the elephant's ear. Now, I kind of gave away one of the other funny answers, because it's also known as the toilet paper bush. It's also known as the the toilet paper plant, because it is very soft and pliable and beautiful for sort of removing the makeup before going to bed. And it's not too unpalatable. Hey, Johan, you enjoying it? Yeah. Definitely go down nicely with a cup of coffee, though. But to the twine, if I did strip this, you get some decent sort of twine off of it. It's not the best stuff in the world. You get a couple of those strips together, and if you're any good at weaving or twining, this stuff can be used. But it's not as good as many others, many of the acacia barks that we find. But if you need to maybe just do a little gift or present for someone that just needs a little bit of a ribbon or a bow, that can work quite nicely. So the elephant's ear, everybody, the rich man's toilet paper, because it is 2-ply. I know why you got the African weeping wattle as an answer, because the African weeping wattle is the poor man's toilet paper, because it's got lots of bits and it's not very good. This is far nicer, far more soft and twice pliable and beautiful, beautiful to behold. So I'm sure you'll all remember that one. So we're going to go around onto the other side of this drainage line and see if maybe, because directly where that tree is, the tracks came out of the river there. It's a dry river. So I'm going to go around and have a look, because we were around that side earlier. We didn't have anything fresh coming out. So it's very likely he's just sitting down somewhere there. I don't know how relaxed this individual is. I believe his mom is not very, very relaxed, but the cubs somehow are quite chilled, which I find quite interesting. How do you get relaxed cubs when the adult is not that relaxed? Very interesting, but we shall experience it ourselves. Okay, well, if anybody knows anything about relaxed or unrelaxed leopards, it is indeed Mr. Tristan. Sounds like he's got another surprise.
do indeed. Not too far from where this leopard's got the kill are 4 lionesses. Looks like the tortured pride lionesses. I think I've only seen one nicely, but I don't recognize this individual. She's got a kind of smudge on the tip of her nose. I have seen very little of the tortured, so I don't know them well at all. But she's got like a little black smudge above the top of her nose, so it's fairly easy to identify her. The rest of them have already cut off. They were all nicely on the road, but unfortunately they've now gone into a thicket. I don't know if we're going to see too much more of them, because they're going to disappear into where the dogs disappeared yesterday when we were trying to find them. I don't know if they're hunting something or they just gotten hot and they just want to find some shade. It's gotten very warm all of a sudden, and so they're kind of all moving into the block rather than on the road itself. So we'll just kind of, I mean, here we can follow them a little bit. We're up on a sandy crest here, so it's not too much of a worry. We tried everything to try and find that leopard with the kill. We found 2 hyenas lying at the base of the tree. We couldn't really get in far enough to actually know or see which cat it is. So all I'm going to do is just be patient. After these lions, we'll go back there again, and hopefully eventually we're going to see that cat up the tree and figure out who exactly has been playing all these games with us over the last few days. It's been quite interesting. I just wait for these guys to go past, and they were kind enough to let us know. Go for it, Jimmy. Yeah, we're just on air at the moment. Cool, well, BT goes. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah, it's that and just these Sesbanias here. Yeah, the monkey pod. So, just sorry, we're just saying hello to one of the landowners that's here. Well, our view of lions was nice. It now no longer is. Just trying to actually see if they've settled or if they're still walking. I don't even see them anymore. It just shows you how difficult it is at the moment. 4 lions have just disappeared completely. Like I say, it was pleasant while they were on the road, but now it's not. Let's try and see if we can get in here somehow. I think they've all just lay up now, which is why we can't really see them anymore. It's going to be one of those days. I can see it. Nothing there. Let's try one more angle of approach. Alright, I'm going to try and see if I can... there they are. I can see them there. We'll try and kind of see if we can get a semi-decent view. It doesn't look like it's going to be that possible. In the meantime, I'll send you to Ngala with some small creatures.
Small creatures indeed. In fact, one of the smallest carnivores there is this side of the world. Found a group of, it looks like mostly young dwarf mongoose, and they've been moving in and out of the tall grass on either side of the road. There's a bit of curiosity from the one in the front. And they've been chasing each other in and out. Oh, look at that. There's a bit of a playfulness going on. And then you see there's a yellow-billed hornbill moving around in between them. Every now and again actually following them. Oh, this is pretty amazing interaction that we're seeing here. Now, of course, one might ask the question, why is the bird following the mongoose? The bird actually just caught something itself. But That's exactly why it's waiting, is when the mongoose move through this tall grass, there's a lot of grasshoppers, locusts, and small beetles and things moving in and about this grass at the moment. And the hornbill is just taking the opportunity to get as much benefit out of that as possible by trying to catch any of the insects that gets flushed when these little predators go through the grass. Rick, I am not sure if they'll play with the hornbill. I think they'll be very interested in the hornbill, that's for sure. And if they do get a chance to get close, it would be interesting to see what they do. I don't think they'll hurt it. Well, at least not the young ones. You never know. A mongoose is an interesting predator. It's an intelligent little animal. And some of them, like the Slender Mongoose, are actually quite vicious predators. I remember a while back I came across we were driving into a clearing, and the next thing that we saw was we found a dwarf mongoose with a crowned lapwing in its mouth, and unfortunately we spooked it and it left it as we arrived and it ran off. But when we got closer we saw that it had killed the lapwing, which is a pretty large meal, a decent meal, I guess. These little guys are very curious at the moment. You can see they're stopping, having a look at us every now and again, and they come from everywhere. Their coats look nice and dark at the moment, so I'm sure they're eating very, very well. They look very healthy. They're actually all along the road. I can see them quite far off in the distance, coming in and out of the grass as well. Now they're definitely foraging and looking for food nearby, and then every now and again the younger ones are fighting there at the back. Maybe they're trying to establish some sort of a hierarchy. Or maybe they're just having fun. As soon as one disappears, another one just pops out of the grass. It looks like the play got quite serious there at the back. And this one closer to us is probably feeling like he's missing out on the attention. And we'll head over there like that at a very, very high speed. Now, I'm sure they're sticking close to the road because it is easier to move and it's also a clear view. And then also, I think it might be they also bask a little bit in the sun. Anna Marie, I have seen a mongoose go after a snake before. In fact, I've seen dwarf mongoose like this. I remember up until that point, I never really actually saw them go after snakes, and I was always curious about that because, you know, other creatures within the same family is well known for their abilities to take care of snake problems. And then I did witness them with a puff adder once, and it was quite entertaining. But then also I found a slender mongoose. Again, the slender mongoose I find quite interesting. We saw what looked like a drag mark, and it actually looked like what occasionally if you find leopard tracks that was dragging a hare. It looked like that, but there were no leopard tracks, of course, and then we saw the small mongoose tracks, and then we found a snake, a boomslang, whose head was bit off completely, just below the brainstem. And I know that in that area there was a boomslang seen earlier that morning. In fact, that's actually why we headed to that particular part of the reserve to go and see if we might get a view. And what I suspect is that mongoose actually had to get into the tree where the snake was and somehow managed to overpower it, kill it, and then was dragging it off to go and eat it somewhere. I'm sure there'll be a little bit more excitement with a group animal such as the dwarf mongoose. And have a look at that. It looks like almost like a wrestling match. You can see they're up on their hind feet. They're trying to force the other one down. The agility and speed is just fascinating. It's so quick. And you wouldn't expect it from an animal looking like that or the way that it's built. And often when you see them early morning, they're mostly just basking in the sun and grooming each other. Now, it looks like they, for the most part, they come in and out of that same particular spot. And there might be a chance that maybe the termite mound where they were overnighting is somewhere nearby that area, and they're still waiting for some of them. But I think we might leave these little guys, continue our search for something else. And in the meantime, we'll go over to Tristan with his very relaxed lions.
We luckily have one lioness that's come back onto the road, which is giving us a good view of them, but they are slowly but surely shutting down for the morning, these guys. I think it's just gotten way too warm for lions to be moving around. It is seriously hot all of a sudden. The sun has got some venom in it today. And after that little bit of rain yesterday, it's quite humid. So I expect these guys are just going to take a nap. Unfortunately, where they are, there's not going to be much in the way of shade for them come midday. They're going to have to find themselves little spots or maybe go towards one of these big marula trees that's further down the road, kind of lying up underneath there. But nice to see these guys around. We've had a lot of lions of late. I mean, a lot of different lions. That's the weird part about it, is it's just no one seems to be settled on Djuma. And all the lions that we're seeing, so the Avokas, the Nkuhumas, the Talamatis, even, the torchwoods, they're all congregating around this Chitwa, Chitakatline, kind of little Gari area. Everybody seems to be sort of milling about this section. The Nkuhumas not so much, but they have been around. I know that yesterday they were seen on Simbambili, but unfortunately in an area where, we just won't have any signal whatsoever. It's just not like right down into the Pungwe and Manyuleti riverbeds, so we don't get much in that way. Talking about updates from Simbambili side, I also got an update that Hosana was seen yesterday, not on Simbambili though. He was on Elephant Plains yesterday briefly, and then he crossed back into Ottawa, but apparently doing really well, healthy, looking really good. So for those of you that have been wanting a Hosana update, there's a nice one for you. Unfortunately, there's not many coming out of St. Kitts at the moment because I don't think they're able to cross the riverbed still at the moment. The Sand River is still in flood, so they don't give us many updates on him because of where he occurs. But nice to hear from the Elephant Plains guy, or the Simbambili guys, that he was seen and apparently looking fine and healthy. And he just came for a little brief visit. Apparently he was only in for about 15 minutes and then he went back out again before anyone could really establish a long sighting. But back to the lions, so the Nkuhumas were that side. But they were the other day just on Little Gari, just south of Gari Main. So they've been around. We know the Telematis have been hanging around Chitakatline, and obviously the Torchwoods have been moving. One of these lionesses, I don't know which one it is now because I've lost track of where the other three are, but they've got nursing or suckling marks and quite heavy teats. So I'm sure that's the one that's got the single cub by itself. Maybe that little cub has been hidden somewhere, and these guys were out and about during the night just trying to find some semblance of food, and have kind of gotten too hot before they've reached it to open clearings, because that's a really good place for a lot of the cats to hunt. We know Tandi has employed a lot of time there hunting. Greg, yes, many times. Prides clash with one another all the time. If you're talking recently, no, we haven't seen anything recent. But there's lots of incidents throughout the Sabi Sands in the history of the Sabi Sands of prides having full clashes and fights where members are chased all around and attacked by other prides. So it does happen. In this area, it's very, very interesting because we talk about, the different prides, the Telematis, the Torchwoods, the Nkuhumas, and yes, they are all very different in their kind of way and what they do, but they're actually all related. So from what we gather and what we've been told by many of the guys that have been here for longer than any of us, is that the Talamati, Torchwood and Nkuhumas were all one pride, and they've split off into these various individuals. And so what's interesting is that every now and then there's been sightings of particularly the Nkuhumas and the Talamatis, both quite large prides, feeding on carcasses together. So maybe there's still an element that there is a bit of a bond there, and that's why they're not that kind of aggressive towards one another. It surprises me though, because of the amount of cubs in both prides. I would have expected those females to be quite strict about it. But yeah, they have been seen together. There is quite a lot of vocalizing in those sightings, and a lot of aggression around the carcasses. As you can imagine, because they don't really know each other that well. But essentially, they are all one. So sometimes when you have that situation, lines can get a little bit blurred, and people don't really, lions don't really kind of figure it out too well. So, but yeah, the prides in this area lately haven't, and it's going to come to blows at some point. We can't keep up this facade of having so many lions in one little space. Eventually the prides are going to bump into each other, and I don't think it's going to be now during summer. I suspect we're going to find this is going to happen in the winter months, when herds of buffalo start descending down on the Sabi Sands from the rich grasses of the Manyuleti and Central Kruger, and we get these these buff herds of 300-400 that come through. You're going to find these lions are going to hunt from both sides and bump into each other, and that's when things go a little bit pear-shaped. Let's hope nothing bad happens. You never really want prides to be fighting, because obviously cubs can get caught in the crossfire and killed, and males turn on females, and it just becomes an ugly situation. So we don't really like to see that kind of thing, but there will be at some point. It's much the same as the leopards. The leopards, obviously the Hukumuri incident means that, he was pushed out of his territory. by rival males. But in the female world, something's going to have to give at some point soon. We can't keep having this amount of leopards squashed into such a small area. A lot of people often ask, how many leopards do we actually see here? And the number just seems to be going up all the time, which is great because we're seeing a lot. But something will have to give at some point in the female world. We've got so many females that are around here. If you just count the number of them, it starts to get a bit ridiculous. And so there will be a fight at some point. There's going to be something that's going to give, and we might even see females starting to move and distribute away, like what we saw with Sakani, a leopard that we used to have here. A few years ago, back in 2015, 2016, she distributed all the way down towards Skukuza, which is a long way from here and far further than most female leopards would dare to distribute. Most female leopards, as we know, siphon off a piece of their mom's territory, but in Sakani's case, her mom died and then there was just pressure from all sides, and so she disappeared further south. The same with the lions. I think something will eventually give, and both in the leopard and lion world in this northern Sabi Sands in the near future.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank Wild Earth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
As you can see, our lioness hasn't moved much at all. The other three, I think, are lying just in the thicket to my right here. I can't see any sign of them, but they walked just to the right of where this lioness is, into these roundleaf teak thickets, and probably have just tucked themselves in underneath these roundleaf teaks where they get a little bit of shade. This lioness is not going to be able to stay where she is. The sun's going to beat down on her just now. Already her shoulders are starting to get a bit of that sunshine, and it is extremely warm this morning. Like I said, the sun feels like it's got little spikes to it. Kind of your skin feels like it's being needled by the sun this morning already. So it's going to be a hot day, and they're going to have to seek better shade than just the fringe of the road that's giving her a little bit. And that's when you know it's been thick, is when animals can sleep in the road just using basically the grass that's grown so long on the edges that it's providing shade across the road. as that sun rises, though, that will disappear pretty quickly. But what's interesting is that there's no sign of the cub with them. The last time these guys were seen was yesterday morning or day before, and the cub was with them. So I wonder where she left the cub. The cub is supposed to be very little still, and I know that there was a report of a pride with 5 cubs at one point. So I don't know if maybe there's one female that's got the slightly older cub and another female that's got 4 younger ones. I don't know. I only, when they walked past, I only noticed one with suckle marks and with lactating teats, but I didn't really pay too much attention to the others. I wasn't actually even thinking about it, but there was a pride the other day that was seen with 5 of them. So it'll be interesting to know if it's this or if there was just a random group that came through. I don't know. They're beautiful lions, though, these torchwoods. They have the most amazing eye colors. So we know that in the Talamatis and in the Nkuhuma pride, there is this gene of this kind of amber-colored eyes. So, there's obviously amber eyes in the Nkuhuma pride, but the Talamatis also have 1 or 2 that have got that deep, rich amber, almost the color of a cheetah's eyes. But this pride seems to have them a lot more. The first few times we started seeing them back in 2012, they had a lot of members that had these kind of amber eyes. And then there was another pride that we used to get in this area called the Fourways pride that also displayed the same gene. Now, it's not that common here in the Sabi Sands. Most of the time when you see these lions, in the Sabi Sands, they have this kind of honey-colored eye. But if you go westwards and you go towards the Kalahari, that's where you start to see 99% of the lions there have the amber-colored eyes rather than the honey-colored eyes. And that's probably just to help with glare more than anything else. The darker the eye, with those big sand dunes and open spaces and sheer amount of glare that comes off of it, the darker the eye, they probably find that it helps them a lot more than the lighter-colored eyes. But here, being denser, thicker, these light-colored eyes probably help a little bit with just getting more light in and seeing a little bit better in these thick sections. Priscilla, personally, no. I am much better with leopards than I am with lions. But that's not to say that you can't ID lions. Some people are very, very good at it. We have a number of viewers that are insanely good with identification of lions and the individuals. And while, leopards, personally for me and many others that I've spoken to, are much easier to identify than the lions from far. Photographically, it's a pretty much of a muchness. If you get a good photo of a lion and a good photo of a leopard, you'll be able to ID them. But from a distance, which is what we have, often it's a lot of you guys will see, when you see the picture of the lion, for us it's much further away than what you're seeing. So we can't always get a visual of little whisker spots on a lion or nicks in the ears. So it's sometimes a little bit trickier for us to identify them from far away. Whereas with leopards, the spot patterns are so much more in your face that it's much easier in many respects to pick up those spot pattern differences. And because leopards are generally on their own, we find that we recognize those individuals pretty quickly. So we will see, Tingana, and he looks very different to Nhlangula, for example. They have a very different look about them. Their shape is different. Their ears are different. Their eyes are different. And because we see them repeatedly, we start to understand who they are and kind of change that mindset. But with lions, when you don't know them very well, in this case, the tortured pride, whisker spots are going to help you, or any identifying mark, like that female that's got that smudged nose. She would be I say smudged nose, but she's got a nose with no little hair on the kind of tip. That sort of smudging or that hairless nose makes her very easily identifiable as part of that pride. So you look for those kinds of things to indicate what pride you're looking at, as well as area. But at the moment, the areas aren't really useful because, like I was saying to you, where we're sitting right now, the Nkuhumas, Talamatis, and Torchwoods are all moving in this section. So you can't always rely on that. And because the Talamatis and the Nkuhumas are growing so large, we're starting to see split-offs of sub-adults going off on their own. I mean, I know Trishala the other day had 3 Nkuhumas by themselves. So now you're starting to find random random lines in amongst all of the others, which are not actually random, but because they're not part of the overall pride and the numbers that you're used to, it becomes a little trickier to ID them. And I always, for me, as somebody that spends more time with leopards, the lions, there's certain individuals within the pride that I look for that helps me identify them. I often don't know every single individual and how to ID them. I know that there are certain individuals there that I look for, and if they're not there, then often I'm at sea with it. And that's something that, you know, personally probably should work on. Is the same with hyenas, is that knowing them a little bit better. But my time that I spend with them is so little in comparison to what I spend with the leopards that getting to know them that well is going to be a lot harder than what I do with the spotted cats. So, you know, it's one of those things. You either you've got to put a little bit of effort into it if you're going to recognize them. But for me, and I'm sure for many others, a leopard is a much easier animal to recognize and ID than lions. Lions, the whisker spots are not that pronounced. They're not as beautifully kind of contrasted against the coat like what you see with the leopard's black little spots above his whiskers or her whiskers. So yeah, for me, lions are harder, but some may disagree. Some may think, you know, leopards are harder. You know, a lot of the time with lions, guys are going off the numbers in the pride more than they're actually even looking at the individuals. A lot of people don't actually even recognize certain lions. They just, you know, will make a call off the pride numbers and the area that they're in, not necessarily the actual look or identification of that individual, which, like I was just saying now, is dangerous at the moment because it can get you into trouble. I mean, I had it the other day where I thought I had the tortured lionesses, but it was actually 2 of the Nkuhuma lionesses, and that was just based off information that I had received coupled with area that we're in, and so it's the wrong way to go about it. It's better to check each individual and then work it out from there. But I don't think these lions are going to do much more for today. I think what we're going to find is this is going to be the case. So I think I'm going to carry on for a little bit. I might head back to where we had that kill, just see if maybe that leopard's popped up the tree. If not, I think maybe do a turn around Chitwa, see if there's any sign of Tandi and Marips or Kuchava from yesterday. And in the meantime, let's send you across to Steve.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, we came around onto the northern side and I found tracks of 3 inside the river, up and down. I heard some birds alarm calling. And then there was some movement and a blur as a leopard ran away. And now we're trying to find it somewhere in this dense thicket. There's at least one. The boy went a little bit further west. Mum disappeared. Her tracks went in the same direction as the boy that drank a little pan off to the left there. And somewhere over here is another one. But it's very dense, everybody. It's very thick and it's very hard to really see anything. But I'm just trying to see with my binoculars and with our wonderful camera if we can spot any spots just looking at us. We might be lucky, but we're going to give it this last opportunity and then move away. It's very, very dense in there. There's a little access to an old road running through this drainage line that's been closed off due to its sodic nature. And so access to that led me to those tracks. But there's going to be no driving down there. The reason they've closed it off is because sodic roads or sodic areas are pretty sensitive. And trying to access in this vegetation is just really counterproductive, to be honest. But the knowledge that there is a leopard, there were 3 leopards just sort of hanging around in here is always so exciting. It's only a few hundred meters west of our camp. And I couldn't find any meat in any of the trees. No, Mary, no. Winter is a completely different season, completely different abundance of vegetation. It all gets eaten and it goes dry. The leaves of all the trees, most of them fall off. The grass dries and wilts and goes brown. that which is not eaten. But so that is what we're looking at, everybody. Very dense vegetation and the perfect environment for a leopard. They love drainage lines. Drainage lines are obviously the lowest point on the landscape that the water flows. So it's always a nice area to track them along because the sandy, muddy ground leaves very easy tracks. But if they go off into the thickets, you can't see them. This is where lions and leopards choose to breed. Dense vegetated areas, lots of tall trees for leopards to hoist their kills. We thought maybe that we'd find at least some meat. You know, if you have leopards that aren't relaxed, you can still find the kill site, and then you can go there after dark. The leopards often come back to the site of their kill. But I've searched all the big trees here and I haven't found anything. Lucas, well, only territorial leopards scent mark, and they will scent mark whenever they feel the need to. So after rain, they will scent mark again, but if it's perpetual rain, they'll hold off. But they go on little bouts of every week or two that they go on a full territorial sort of marking. But when a male and female are mating, that male will scent mark repeatedly as he follows her. And she will also scent mark repeatedly when she's in estrus. She gets very excited and very sort of, well, she's on heat. She's really keen to meet a male, so she's advertising. So there's different peaks. When Thandi was pregnant and she was about to drop her cubs, she became very, very vigorous in her scent marking in a much smaller area. That's sort of indicating to other females, I suppose, and to males that this area is occupied and there is a very, very heavily pregnant female nearby, and this is going to be her spot. So it comes different times, and there's not like every 2 weeks, but leopards will vary up. If there's rain, they often will go straight again after rain. Same with lions and rhinos. It's all about holding the scent. The scent can last for about 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks or so they need to move regardless of the weather. But if the weather does get very misty or very rainy, well then indeed they will have to move again. Okay, well, while we keep scanning, we're going to take your attention once again to the dashboard, to where we have found another beautiful wildflower, and this one should be very easy for all of you to quickly send through your answers. Am I catching everybody sleeping this morning? Send through your answers. What wildflower? We're doing wildflowers this evening, everybody, so if you think of naming trees, you're just going to get it wrong, because it's only wildflowers this morning that we're doing. No trees, just forbs that I've plucked off of the ground, and it's a beautiful long pinkish purple flower, and a very nice food as well. The leaves and the shoots are cooked. In Zimbabwe they're a delicacy, sort of like a substitute for spinach, but just like the last plant, you need to cook it quite heavily. It's not as delicate as our spinach that you can just lightly blanch and eat. That's not as good. You need to really give it a proper boil. And then root infusions of this plant have been used to treat earache, and a root decoction has been used for eye problems and as a face wash, for obviously for the eyes. And fresh leaves, very, very pungent in smell. They smell very much like peanut butter, and you can actually rub them on your skin as an insect repellent. Now, there is one of these in Europe, which is highly toxic. So you will not want to touch this one. So I didn't get Tammy's answer there. Tammy said something that I didn't quite copy. But the flower is the very characteristic noticeable feature on this. No, Tammy, is not an ochra. It's a very beautiful little purple flower. You can see where the insects actually come into land. There's the, what do you call it, the landing pad over here, UV landing structure. beautiful. In Europe, you get one of these, and it's poisonous, so I'd really not recommend anybody to eat the European version. Of course, it's a wildflower, Dizzy. We're doing wildflowers this morning, so I suppose you get half a mark for saying wildflower, but yes, all of the plants I'm attempting to look at this morning are wildflowers. I'm not getting your answer there, Gwen. I'm sorry, it's not coming through clearly. A bowel, I'm not sure. The scientific name is called Ceratotheca triloba for this leaf. Bellflower. Dizzy, it's not a bellflower. It looks like a bell, but it's not a bellflower. This is a very commonly found plant here in the African wilds, and we're not finding many of them here in Djuma I wasn't finding many this year. I had plenty last year, and now all over Pridelands this wonderful wild foxglove is growing in abundance. So if any of you guessed wild foxglove there, you are 100% correct. So wild foxglove, a very nice universal plant. It's eaten, and it helps with anything in your ear and your eye and keeps away the biting flies and insects. So very, very useful and very pretty at the same time. And like I said, the flowers have got a very wonderful peanut butter smell, which I quite like. Everybody likes peanut butter. Johan, you like peanut butter?
Of course.
Ooh, I'm getting hungry now. Taylor always used to do that at about 45 minutes before drive. She'd start discussing what's for breakfast. I'm not going to do that now, although now I've got it in my mind. Okay, well, we're going to deposit our wildflower back on the floor so it can decompose back into the wilderness. Remember to be sustainable when harvesting, everybody. I'm selecting a very, very well-populated plants right now. I'm not over-harvesting them. It's always nice to do a little bit of scientific learning. Okay, we're going to move on. I might just spend another minute or two scanning the vegetation, see if we can spot this leopard. Can maybe do with Tristan's help, but well, let's go over to him anyway for an update.
I don't know about that, Steve. I think you're just capable enough to be able to do it yourself. Steve often sells himself short when it comes to tracking, but he's pretty sharp on tracks, so I think he'll be just fine all on his own. It's not like we're having much. So we're also struggling a little bit when it comes to the leopard department this morning. I haven't seen really too many fresh signs. There was tracks a little bit early on Gowrie Main that were okay. Stand by one. As I say that, let's have a look here quickly. There's tracks for a female leopard right now, and a poo. But they have been driven over by multiple people. This must be for Tundi from yesterday. If you look, the poo itself is dry, so you can just see, I don't know, maybe you might see it just over my shoulder here. There it is there, and the track is coming like this. She's defecated and moved behind us. But the reason why I say this is not a fresh track is that, yes, it's after the rain, but there's many vehicles that have driven over it. What we would be looking for in terms of freshness would be one for that poo there to be shiny still and still soft and pliable, whereas that has got a little crust on it already. So that's probably from after the rain yesterday afternoon. You probably found after the rain she then came out and started moving around. Also, we would be wanting to see tracks on top of the vehicle tracks, and we're not seeing that. We're seeing vehicles that have driven all over them. So the tracks are very nondescript. I'll show you a track now because you can't actually see it next to the poo. But let me go forward a little bit, and I'll show you how tricky the track can be when it's conditions like this and after a bit of rain. So if you have a look, there's like a ruffled piece in the middle of the road. So there's like a section that's, you can actually see the rain droplets on. So this section there, and then there, and there. are the footprints that are walking down the road. And so those tracks, while they look good because they got clean edges and they're on top of one of the vehicles from this morning, there's many others that unfortunately have driven over it. Just want to see something quickly. She definitely, like I say, there's an element that she's on top of that vehicle's a private vehicle. It's not a game drive vehicle that she's on top of. So that would indicate, and now Wendy, I'm not happy about being in Wendy, just by the way, everybody. She is infinitely less powerful than Rusty. Rusty is my preferred mode of transport in many ways. Veronica, we're not 100% sure. So the reason why I'm saying it's probably Tundi is because I know where I left her yesterday morning. It was right here, just behind me on the left-hand side. So female leopard track, this area, where I left Tundi, the chances then are almost 99% that it is her. If it was another cat, I'd be surprised. It could be, though. I mean, we know Kuchav is also around. We also know that Sabui does come up here, so it's possible, but I'm pretty sure it's her. Like I say, this is exactly where we left them yesterday, and that would be her coming out on her territorial little patrol last night after she'd left the brat Marips somewhere in this section. But he should still be around then, and we know how bored he gets, so he might be milling about and causing panic somewhere. I want to just check this pan here. The other day he was here the whole day, and he was apparently terrorizing everything that came towards this little water point. So let's just quickly check here. The lions are actually not far from this at all. They're about 200 meters, and then the kill is about 200 meters that, or maybe a little bit more, maybe 400 meters that way. So there's a lot going on in this little section at the moment. Sonia, no, all cat's poop doesn't look the same. Lions obviously will have a bigger caliber, is how I always like to describe it, is that they have a much bigger poo than what a leopard does, and you'll find that they like to defecate pretty much anywhere, lions. They're not too concerned, whereas leopards are very much poopers in the road. They like to poop on paths and roads so that everybody that walks there knows that they've been there. It's a territorial marker for them. And then you've got cheetah who like to poop on things, so they're not a huge road poopers. They like to find a tree that's fallen over, or a road sign, or whatever it may be, anything that's elevated, and they poop on top of that, because cheetah, again, they like to climb things to look over, and then other cheetah pick it up pretty quickly. So yeah, poop is the size, mostly, between the cats, and what they've eaten also plays a part in it, and so you can tell the difference pretty much between them based off what they've kind of been eating. So smaller cats will have small little bones in there from mice and birds, whereas the bigger cats have shards of bone from the bigger antelopes that they've been feeding on. The one that always confuses people is civet. Civet gives everybody a rough time because they poop massive dung, feces for their size. Everyone thinks that they kind of, when they see it, that it's a lion that's done it, but actually little civet is responsible. The trick with civets, though, is that they're omnivores. So if you just poke around in their poop a little bit, you'll start to find signs of berries and fruits and seeds, and that immediately tells you that it's not one of our big predators. Also, they like to use latrines, so you'll often find multiple poops in the same spot when it comes to a civet. But that little poop there is a hungry cat. There you'll find that when cats are full, especially a leopard, their poop size triples almost. So you'll get a much, much larger poo from a cat that's eaten well. That's from a cat that's hungry and probably looking for food. And that's maybe what she's doing, is while she's territorially patrolling, she's also going to be looking for hunting opportunities, and she'll then take those if they come about. I'm just coming down to Tswalu Dam quickly. I just wanted to see if there's any sign of anything here. We know that the other day Tandi brought Marips this side, so it's possible that he's hanging around down here. Maybe a long time ago, actually not that long ago, a lie. I saw 3 of them in, was it October? I feel like October, somewhere there. Yeah, I think it was October that I saw 3 of them on Buffel's Hook, and they then moved kind of southwards, but they didn't come onto Djuma itself. If we're talking just Djuma, I think maybe 2 years ago, long time ago, and we won't see many of them now after all of this rain. There's going to be very few individuals, but we're at Tswalu Dam, just always a good place to come and have a little look. The dam itself still very full, still overflowing. Don't know where our little green shank is today. Must be around somewhere. All our green-backed herons, they've been hanging around in this area a lot, but I don't see them just yet. I'm sure they'll pop out now. Now there's one green shank already coming our way. It's just on the actual fringes of the dam rather than in this overflow. Walking along, and then there's a little sandpiper in front of it. Taking it very, very easy. The 2 birds are not looking as though they're too active just yet this morning. I wonder if they are hot as well. It is fairly warm, and maybe they've had a good feed already this morning. It's been warm enough that could be the case. It just sat down. Look at that. I wonder if it's going to have a little nap. I'm just watching its eye to see if the eye starts to close. Well, it's not helping that a 3-banded plover's just started calling and flown away. It's caused everybody to be a little bit alert. So Jackie, fish-wise, inside here we've got 2 different bream species or tilapia species, and then we've got catfish, so barbel is what we call them in South Africa, but sharp-toothed catfish. And then there probably are a fair few minnows that are in here. I don't think a fish survey has been done properly on Tswalu Dam to figure out exactly what's in here, but those are the most common bigger fish that we see. And then there's lots of small little things that mill about, but without doing some fish traps and a bit of netting, it's going to be tricky to know exactly. And there's the 2 fish eagles. They're sitting on the island, quite low down for them. They normally sit much higher than that. I'm trying to scan to see if I can see any sign of Boris the Blade or Vlad the Impaler. I don't see either of those. Those of you that don't know who those or what I'm talking about, those are the 2 crocodiles of Tswalu Dam. I don't know why we gave them those names, but I think it was one of our previous presenters here named Brent who gave them both those names. For what reason, I'm not very sure, but that is the names that those 2 crocs have. I saw one croc yesterday with the wild dogs. It was absolutely fascinating. As soon as the wild dogs appeared at the dam, the crocs came swimming towards them. So, Bonnie, it's an interesting question and an in-depth one, I think, in many respects, because rain impacting migration is huge. When rains fall, what it's essentially doing is it creates an absolute abundance. So as vegetation grows, so insect populations rise, frog populations, which then causes food sources for everything to increase pretty quickly. And what that means is that as a bird is migrating, if it comes across an area that's got an absolute purple patch in terms of food and availability of resources, it's not going to migrate as far as it maybe would have if there wasn't. So birds are very good, particularly birds. I mean, we're talking I think their sort of migrations are more affected by rain than most. We'll bring in the wildebeest of East Africa now, but so if a bird kind of does that, and that's why when last year we saw very few European rollers and carmine beetles, is that we didn't have a very good rainfall in the time that they normally migrate, and so they all got caught up north of us in Zimbabwe. Lots and lots and lots of them up that side, but nothing really made it down to South Africa. This year, because we've had good rains in South Africa early on, many of the migratory birds have come in fairly decent numbers this year. And carmine's not quite yet in this section, but just north of us in the Kruger, lots and lots of carmines up that side. So they're slowly but surely starting to return back down to us after a few years of dry conditions. What we also saw is that the lack of rain during the drought conditions caused birds to come further south than they normally do. So, for example, the prattenkols that were here at Tswalu Dam, they arrived here, and probably due to the fact that the normal areas that they like to inhabit were dry, but yet Tswalu Dam had a fair amount of water and then fairly good habitat of these kind of edges of the dams where they could inhabit. So rainfall plays a huge part in bird migration. In terms of the wildebeest, what you see with that migration is very interesting. They too basically follow the rains around. It's a lot, so the wildebeest migration is not as cyclic as everybody kind of makes it out to be. Yes, the overall pattern is a cycle that goes through the western side of the Serengeti into the Masai Mara, down the eastern side of the Serengeti to Ndutu, and then back again, and it kind of does that loop around. But within that movement that takes place over the course of the year, there is a lot of movement of the wildebeest based off rainfall. And what you find is when you're in these areas and you watch these wildebeest, you'll see a storm in the distance. It will rain and the herds will head in that direction. They'll feed off the lush grass that's then grown there, as then it rains the next day somewhere else, and off they go. And they just kind of bound around. And so sometimes the wildebeest will move kind of ping-ponging in the same directions for a number of days before they then start to go to the next spot. And they kind of keep moving. But eventually that movement, sort of zigzagging, eventually gets them doing the cyclic movement that they have. So they're quite dependent on the rainfall and moving to where there is decent grazing. You can imagine that's a lot of animals that are looking for food. All right, we're going to carry on from Tswalu Dam. We're going to go one more time past where that kill was. Hopefully we'll get lucky.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. Wild Earth Explorers. It's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth. Day.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, it is that time of morning when we're going to find a nice shady spot for a coffee, and we've got another couple of little plants we'd like to show you. Easy ones that I've done before. So we've just zoomed all the way across to the west to Johan and my favorite watering hole called Leopard Dam. We obviously weren't able to spot our leopard on the other side. There's another leopard that moves around this area, a big male who apparently is not very relaxed, so we have to put some work in, get him nice and chilled. So we're just gonna creep in here. Nice shady spot right here next to the dam. Just like that. And okay, so while I try to find the plants that I've dropped all over the place, yeah. There we go. There is one. Oopsie, not that one. It's a very easy one. It's got a little bit wilted, unfortunately, since plucking it. A little bit wilted. Wonderful time to sit and enjoy coffee in moments like this. So what we have here is a very beautiful plant with a very purple flower, very strange looking flower actually. Very strange looking flower. Did discuss it at length on Valentine's Day. And it is part of the tomato family, the potato family. And root powder of this plant is utilized for skin problems, boils, any itching that you might have, blisters or ulcers. So it's a very useful sort of external skin balm for ailments. And then infusions of the roots are taken orally to assist with digestion, or indigestion, should I say. Whereas decoctions of the entire plant are apparently quite good at alleviating headaches. Now, the southern Sotho use the fruit of this plant, or used to use this fruit of this plant as a sort of alleviation of hemorrhoids. So even Europeans have used it, but they've taken decoctions orally to try and assist in the alleviation of painful hemorrhoids. But the fruit itself looks like a ripe little cherry tomato. But if you do eat it, well, you could probably die. So try and avoid eating it. You often find these beautiful green cherry tomato looking like things on this plant when you walk around the bush, but nothing eats it. Blue Lady, it's not a tuber plant. I don't actually know what a tuber plant is. So not that one. Anybody else got any guesses for this beautiful, very strange looking flower? Now remember, this is the male parts of the flower here, and inside, to get the nectar, the insect has to pop it open. There you can actually see that it's popped out itself. The female part has popped out. Very, very strange. Cantrell, I mean, I suppose you're going in the direction of the potatoes. You think it's a nightshade. This is not a nightshade.
not wild potato. It is related, so the genus is Solanum. It's the same genus, same family, and the species name is Panduriformes. And there is the word poison in the name. And it's a very strange name, in fact, because you think it should be poison cherry tomato, but it's not. It's poison something else fruit. It's a poison fruit. I'm sure you've heard it before. I have definitely shown this one to many of you out there. I think it's a very important plant to know if you ever feel like poisoning someone. Not that anybody should, but anybody? Nobody knows this plant? Sounds like I'm going to have to give it to you again. It is the poison apple, everybody. The poison apple, Solanum Panduriformes. Okay, so unfortunately no one has gotten it right. Let's move out into the dam, Johan, and give everybody just a few silent moments while we just absorb the sort of the silence of the birds, or shall I say the loud raucous call of the birds, and we just enjoy this beautiful view. I hope you've all enjoyed a few lovely wildflowers this morning. I do always enjoy bringing them to you. is very peaceful. And Sherry indeed very still. It's not even a breath of air this morning. Calm before the storm, I suspect. It was wonderfully cool yesterday. Managed to get a nap. First day since I've been here. Today it feels like it's going to warm up a bit. But for now, in the shade, it's wonderful. So a great time of year, everybody, to do wildflowers and grass identification, tree identification, because everything is in flower. The best way to identify things, if you don't know how to identify trees and grasses, learning them in the winter months is very difficult. Once you learn them and know them, it's a lot easier. But a little bit of flower ID, always nice to get a little bit of medicinal and cultural values as well. Okay, well, we focus on our silent moments and our plants. It sounds like Tristan has got some more surprises up his sleeve.
Well, as you can see in the middle of the screen is a spotty cat that is very well hidden, and it's Kalamba. I should have known, with all of the nonsense that we've been going through the last few days to try and find her with this kill, that it would be her. It's the only cat really that would do these kinds of things. It's just typical of Kalamba. We always joke about it because, you know, Sibui probably would have put it in the most beautiful tree where we could see her, but little Kalamba is obviously different. She does her things her way, which is perfectly fine. It's the charm of her in many ways. You can just see the spots through the long grass there. She's just watching over her kill and over the riverbed. She's got a prime view of the Sabi Sands right now. Not only does she have the food, but she's got this kind of tree that overhangs the riverbed, and then this beautiful big bank that she can sit up on top and watch what's going on, as well as a little flowing stream. She has water, she has everything really right here. It's the kind of 5-star spot in many respects, just not so 5-star for us and our vehicles at the moment. But you can see there's the little bank. I was hoping that at some point she's going to come out onto that bank and put her paws over the edge and pose for us. That would be very, very cool. But there you can see the Mulawati flowing in the foreground, and then her kill is up on the right of that little kind of entrance into where that seep is flowing into the riverbed itself. You can actually see nicely from here the drag mark too through the sand. Pretty epic to see how she dragged it through the water. It must have been so cool to have watched her go through the water. You just see it in the middle of the frame there going straight across, and then all the hyena tracks on either side of the drag mark where they probably were trying to figure out, where is it and how do I find this kill. Maybe she even did it in haste. But there's all the hyenas to the right, and then hers is the main big drag on the left of the frame there, where she went across. Hopefully, though, she'll eventually, like I say, come out and sit on the edge of that bank. It'll be so pretty if she does. Mary, it is nice to see our princess back in Djuma. What's interesting, though, is that she killed this inside Little Gowrie and dragged it across the main road back into Djuma. Seems like she's spending a lot of time on this kind of southern boundary between Dwarf Dam and Twin Dams, a lot more often these days. I can't really understand why. There's a lot of pressure to the south here, whereas in the sort of centre and eastern side of Djuma, there's very little going on. Maybe it's just so flooded and wet. She's just using different areas for now in order to somehow just get a semblance of kind of sure footing and dry places to operate. I don't know. Maybe it's the presence of Shidulu to the west that's dragging her that way. I honestly have no idea why she's down here, but it's good for when and if she has her cubs soon, because the Mulawati system is a place where she spent a lot of time, and I'm hoping that she'll then utilize the same den sites that her mom put her in, which would be kind of in the Mulawati riverbed along sort of Djuma side. I don't think she'll go too far south. She was kept a little bit in a drainage line just south of us for a while, but not long. So I expect her to kind of push back up the Mulawati. And maybe what she's doing at the moment is, if she is indeed pregnant, which we still haven't 100% confirmed, it looks like it, but it's not 100% confirmed yet. But if she is, that means that she needs to start really patrolling and protecting boundaries for when she has these cubs. And so maybe what she's doing at the moment is just really hammering the southern boundary to make sure that she doesn't get too much of a threat from there. And then from that, she can then push into the center and have the cubs around where she was born, which is kind of the Nyala Road drainage, Mulawati, all those areas there. And utilize those den sites. That's what I'm hoping. If she does do that, it's going to make a big difference for us. It's going to really help us in terms of being able to find her. For a long period, I was worried she was going to use the Gallagher shortcut drainage lines, and that would have been near impossible. Come forward, girl. Come and sit right on the edge here for us so we can see you. For the longest time, in fact, ever since 2011, when I first saw this little bank here, flowing with where the Mulawati flows, I have always wanted to see either a pride of lions or a leopard sitting on top with their paws overhanging the bank. And so if she did that today, it would be a 10-year kind of dream sighting. That would be awesome. But, these kind of things very seldom happen. The bank also can be a little bit unstable, so sometimes they don't like to lie with their feet over it in places. If Thandi and Marips were here, I suspect he would do something like that. But I think Kalamba is more likely not going to do anything of the sort. You can see she's just watching at the moment. She's just checking where the hyenas are. They were lying in the direction she's looking. And then the kill's to her right. Miley is just as successful as her mother. So in terms of hunting, most definitely. In fact, she's probably our most successful female from a finding her on carcasses point of view. We see her on kills regularly, whereas, Thandi has changed a lot in the time that I've known her. When she was younger, she used to kill like Kalamba did. But nowadays, she's become very, very clever and very calculated in what she does. She knows full well that hunting big things like this at her age and hoisting them is very difficult. She loses a lot to hyenas. So she concentrates her efforts on smaller animals. She kills a lot of scrub hares and a lot of duiker. And those are both easy animals for her just to jump up into a tree. No matter how close a hyena is, she can get away with those. And she can feed on those pretty regularly. But Kalamba seems to still be, she's much younger, so targeting big animals for her is much easier, and hoisting them is also going to be a lot easier. But she is a serious hunter, is little Kalamba, and we hope that she'll take after mom from a cub point of view. If she can raise cubs like her mom does and her grandmother, we'll be in for 10 years of amazing viewing of leopard cubs around the Djuma area, which will be, as good as one can hope for. Look how she's stalking forward. And she's going to sit right there. And look at that camouflage. We talk about it a lot at the moment, is how difficult these cats are to spot. When they're in the shade like that, and look at that, when she puts her head down, you would never, ever know if you drove past here that there's a leopard sleeping right there. The point of view that we have, even just zooming out a little bit, it becomes completely lost in that long grass. That spotted coat pattern really does blend in so well and becomes so difficult to see. They're masters of camouflage in these areas, and it's why they operate on riverbeds like this. They know that they blend in so well by sitting in the grasses and the thickets where there's dappled light. It just matches their coat pattern really, really clearly. It's quite funny, I was just looking down at the tracks now, and I can see where I walked this morning. Because, when you see these drag marks, especially leading towards water, that's not typically something that you would see from a leopard. Leopards don't really, as we know, like to get their feet that wet. So I was just wanting to check that it wasn't dragged away by hyenas and that she had lost it, because obviously we had seen lots of hyena tracks on the road already before we got here. So I kind of walked, and as soon as I took one step towards the drag mark and saw her tracks there, it's kind of immediately just stopped and turned around. But the distance between where that is and where she is now is, that's less than 10 meters, but because she was obviously up in the grass there and lying down, there's no ways that I could see her, and I doubt that she actually even picked me up either. She might have from up there. Maybe she saw me milling about, but it's good that she didn't run away or anything like that. 100%, Marcus. I don't know, Marcus, if you've ever owned a dog, but a dog that runs through grass in the morning where there's a bit of dew, their coat gets very, very wet, and the same for leopards. It's why they don't like lying in the grass when it's been raining and things like that. They'd like to rather find a mound or a sandbank or a tree where they can lie, and I'm surprised that we don't see any sign on this sandbank of her actually sleeping on it. I would have thought that this would have been a wonderful place for her to have rested during the night. Nice and kind of soft and cool, but I suppose it's very exposed. Rather be up in the grass where you can hide away and no one knows that you're there than to be exposed and be kind of seen by everybody. I would expect that, like I say, if it was a big male leopard or even the likes of Marips, he would have been a lot more on the sandbanks and just trying to stay out of that wet grass. But what will happen is that it dries out obviously during the day, and then they just groom themselves, and that gets their fur back into pretty decent order. I mean, you saw when she stood up, she's just in perfect condition. There's Kalamba. Her coat doesn't look as though there's a hair out of place, but it will most certainly be damp and wet, especially around the chest area and the leg areas. Those will be very wet and matted, the fur there. It's just this time of the year they've got to deal with it. Soon they'll be covered in dust, and there'll be no water on them. The grass will all be dry and dead and dusty, and then they'll have to deal with the dusty problem. So just the way it goes. They're resilient creatures, these guys, and their fur, unlike something like a waterbuck, which secretes a huge amount of oils, is not waterproofed, so it does get very wet. And one thing that they can do if they do get wet is they can shake their entire body, and that often sends water flying in all directions. The best way to see that is often to go and see like male lions in the Okadanga Delta when they go through the channels, or to see jaguars when they swim and see how they kind of cope with water. Their water retention on their coats, because the hair is quite short in most places, is quite low, and so one good vigorous shake and generally most of the water is off, and then they dry out pretty quickly after that. I think she's just watching the hyenas that are behind there, because when we left earlier, or when we tried from that side, the hyenas were lying just on the other side of this little ridge. They were sleeping there, so I'm pretty sure that's what she's looking at, and maybe she wants to feed, and she's trying to get to the tree without attracting too much attention to herself. That could be what the case is. I don't know. I mean, I can't see around the back and can't see through a bank, so it's just an assumption that that's what it is. Because she seems to be quite wary and watching over the lip. And it's possible that it's not her kill and she's just arrived. I suppose that could also be the case. But generally when you see that with leopards, when they arrive at another leopard's kill, they approach fairly cautiously, and when they see the other leopard, they start to salivate and you start to get low little rumbling growls, or they turn and try and move before that leopard sees them. In this case, she's not really kind of doing either of those. I certainly couldn't see her salivating, so I suspect it is her kill. It's just that she's watching hyenas. If there was another leopard here, it would be a very different body language that we'd be seeing from her. Dylan, who's 10 years old, no, not really. Leopards, funny enough, don't have much of a scent. Well, not from the distances that we view them. I think if you put your nose into its fur, it would be different. But when they are kind of walking past the cars or at this proximity that we're seeing them now, no, I can't smell anything. They're very good at grooming themselves, so you don't pick up too much of the smell of even blood if they've been eating. So they're pretty good. What you do smell a lot of the times, and when we came here this morning, there was a strong scent, and it wasn't from her so much, it was from the hyenas that had walked around. They get this wet dog smell when they've been walking a lot in the wet grasses, and that was quite strong here this morning, is that kind of smell of wet dog. The leopards don't typically get it that much, but what I will say is that her kill stinks. So yesterday we could find her kill just by the smell. We couldn't see it, but we could know that the kill was still there just because it stank. Meat was rotting, So it wasn't very nice to smell at all, and it will still stink. So if she feeds on it enough and kind of eats and then comes and sits right next to me, I'm pretty sure we'll smell the smell of dead animal, but we won't smell leopard as per se. They don't have a very pungent smell about them at all. They're not like the wild dogs that are super stinky and make for rather smelly animals. Camouflage amazes me though. I mean, like I said, we know that she's there, and so you can see it, but without knowing, and if you just had to drive past her and she stayed dead flat like that, it would be near impossible to see her. Kalamba, you're so sneaky. That's why yesterday we struggled to find her. But I'm excited that she's here with this kill and that we can access it enough to actually get some visuals of it. I mean, she's going to be here probably today and tomorrow, at least, maybe even into the next day. It's quite a large carcass, and there's still a lot of meat there. She's literally just eaten internal organs at this stage. She hasn't eaten back legs even yet, or the back straps, the front legs still, the neck, the head. So there's a long way to go before she's even finished with this kill. And that's going to be good for us. You never know also, we might get Mulawati arriving here. This is an area that he walks around a lot. So it could be a good opportunity for us to get him as well. It's just a pity that we're going to be down to one car for a few days, and so it will just have to be Trish this afternoon, and I think she's going to be out again in the morning. I'm not sure. We'll see. All right, while we sit with Kalamba and see what she gets up to, let's send you over to Steve and see how he's going on his leopard search.
How my leopard search is going? Well, we left those leopards a long time ago. They are probably hiding in the drainage line, unable to access. But got another flower on the dashboard, and this one, normally it's not a very easy one to identify right now, but the flower is over here. It's a little bulbous tubular flower as well. So I'm not going to expect anybody to truly know exactly what it's called, because it's not that easy to identify right now. But what it does do is it stands very tall, and it gives these wonderful little pods at the bottom. And it is the wild sesame trifolium. And the leaves, very similar to that of the large leaf devilthorn. You can actually mix with milk. Sort of you heat the milk, don't burn it, just heat the milk. And it makes a very nice sort of yogurt, which apparently, and there's an aphrodisiac for men. The roots can be burnt and then dried and mixed with Vaseline. They can be applied once again. Another snake bite remedy this morning. So very, very nice. If you ever do happen to get bitten by a snake, make sure you've got some of this burnt root ready to go. And the leaves, once again, are quite mucilaginous. Now, mucilaginous is sort of, it's soapy. If you've ever played with a dishwashing liquid, that soapiness that comes from it. So if you play with these leaves with liquid, they get sort of very mucilaginous, and there's actually sopanin inside these leaves. So you can actually use the leaves of this plant as a very effective soap. I don't know how effective it is versus today sort of detergents that we get, but it's a very organic one. And you know that the wash off of this plant itself is just going to go into the soil, and it's not going to do any negative harm. I do like to use organic stuff that you know is going to go back into the vegetation. It's not going to cause some sort of pollutant in the water. So the wild sesame is also very easily identified because it stands like this, very tall. Very tall. And the foxglove is another one that stands very tall like that. So they elevate their flowers to get right high up there, and the flowers are pollinated. They're a very sort of pinkish red flower, and they're most likely pollinated by butterflies. Nice long tubular flower. Let's quickly send you over to Ngala.
So we've had an interesting few minutes over the last few minutes. We are very lucky to find this lioness with her head up and the little one quite active next to her. You can see very, very interested in the tree. Clearly attacking the tree. You can see it looks like it's got a full belly. And then the mother's obviously, she's panting very, very heavily, which is a clear indication of how much she's eaten over the last day. I also haven't noticed any of the carcass being left, actually. Oh, that's amazing. That means Bernie, this is very lovely indeed to see a little lion cub of that age playing around like that, chewing everything. I'm curious to know how much of the actual carcass, or the meat on the carcass, they actually had to eat. They are still quite young and they would just start to be taken to carcasses by the mother. In fact, yesterday was the first time we've seen it. There's a bit of a cloud cover that's come over now, so it's cooled down a bit, and I think that's why I'm lucky to get a last little bit of activity out of them for the morning, because if you look at the lioness, you can see her eyes are closed, the tongue slightly out. It's hardly even a proper pant, and I'm sure that she's going to flop around and not long from now and take a proper rest. She's literally falling asleep as she's sitting there.
It's no secret that nature can heal. Some of our Wild Earth viewers are finding solace in the outdoors close to their homes during lockdown.
This is how I keep myself busy during lockdown. Beautiful little jumping spot.
I love walking in the open spaces near my home. Provides a moment of peace in a crazy world.
This is my fire escape with some of the birds I get to see. That's what it's like in New York City during lockdown.
Being in nature helps me to cope with the challenges of life and helps me to be humble and grateful.
It's magical watching everything turn into a winter wonderland as the snow softly falls.
Been doing lots of walking, dog walking, outside at parks.
This is my Ridgeback Drake. Our little slice of paradise is a provincial park called Hopewell Ross.
Connecting with nature is critical to stay positive during these tough times. Wild Earth encourages you all to find time to escape to nature.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is a call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
So we've changed our position slightly and we've managed to get a view of the wildebeest carcass in the background. So just off to the back right of where the mother is, and I can see it is a young wildebeest. The long mane hair. It's covered in flies. I can see some flies on the tip of the horn and the ears, and it looks like they have been eating quite a bit, but there's also still quite a bit left. And then when I look at her, she's slowly falling asleep. I am thinking because of the fact that there's still something left, especially for a lioness this large, it means that the other lioness did not return during the night to feed with her. Looks like it was only her and the cubs. And what a privilege to get to see them again this morning. To see what they've been up to. It looks like they've had a good evening and all's going well on this side. You can see the little cubs are also quite sleepy at this point, and I think this is exactly what they might be doing for the rest of the afternoon, until such time that we come out again this afternoon, and hopefully we'll get to have another view of them. But yeah, we've had an epic morning, once again filled with lions here in Ngala, and I hope our viewers can join us again this afternoon on the live safaris.